morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. You're tuned to Storm Watch, sponsored by Walls this morning. We have a lot going on in the tropics, both in the western Pacific, the eastern Pacific, and now in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean. So you don't want to miss this segment of Storm Watch. First, I want to cover what's going on out in the Philippines. As you know, Babs moved through the Philippines yesterday. This is film out of Manila in the Philippines, where the government is closed down except for emergency management officials. Typhoon Babs blew through the northern Philippines Friday, but still had flooding in Manila. 53 people were killed in landslides. Roads were flooded or blocked by the landslides as well. In Manila, President Joseph Estrada ordered most government offices to close at noon on Friday. Now, this just a week after Super Typhoon Zeb moved through this area. Now, Typhoon Zeb did not affect Manila to the extent that Manila has been affected by Babs, but still in all, Babs is packing winds right now at 75 to 80 miles per hour, even though it's weakened over land. Once it gets out into the South China Sea, it will once again strengthen. Now, our attention in the Atlantic Basin is toward the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean, because this is an area where it's climatologically favorable, meaning that if anything were to develop in the way of showers or thunderstorms, well, conditions are still good for continued strengthening. Water temperatures are hot, high pressure in the upper levels of the atmosphere this time of year, and not as much of a shearing environment. So we look to that area for development, and we've got a couple of things going on. This is a low pressure that is at the tail end of a front, and it's sitting in the Bay of Campeche right now. You may remember yesterday it was in this region. It's kind of moved a little south. At least the convection appears to be further south than it did yesterday. And this is fired up overnight and continues to be a suspect area. This will be looked at further today by the National Hurricane Center. Right now it's an extratropical low, may have some tropical characteristics, but it is not yet a tropical depression. But it's an area definitely worth watching. We do have a tropical storm Mitch, upgraded yesterday from Tropical Depression 13. It is centered at 13.0 north and 77.5 west, about 345 miles south of Kingston, Jamaica. Its winds have been upgraded now to about 60 miles per hour. It's moving north at 7. Barometric pressure has dropped a little, indicating some strengthening. It's estimated at 997 millibars. Here's the circulation. You can see it pretty well around the center. Now, appears as though the convection waned overnight and fired further to the north and east of the center of circulation, but is still excellent banding features here. The banding to the south is being cut off by a mid-upper level trough low pressure to its south, but that should retrograde, and as it does, a ridge of high pressure build in. So we do think that this is going to strengthen to hurricane status within the next 24 hours. Now, it's forecast to move northward and then northwestward. And although there are no hurricane or tropical storm advisories that have been issued yet for some of the islands here, folks that have interest in Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, in that area of the Caribbean need to monitor this situation closely, because Mitch is forecast to become a hurricane. Further out in the Atlantic, a couple of waves right now encountering a pretty good amount of shear, and if any development were to occur, it would be slow. Off the African coast, Cape Verde Islands, Cape Verde season, pretty much nil at this point. Area of disturbed weather here, but it has a real hostile environment that it has to traverse before it would be any factor at all. This is Lester. Lester is a hurricane. It's down a little bit in wind speed from yesterday. It's 75 miles per hour now. It was 100 miles per hour earlier today, or last night at the last advisory, so it has weakened some. It's drifting to the south-southwest, centered at 16.5 north and 109.1 west. This is forecast to move further to the west and weaken more over the colder waters of the Pacific.
A chilly start to the day, not only in the Northeast, but as far south as Georgia. Get the latest on your temperature, plus a Texas flood update just ahead on Weather Center.
This program was sponsored by Walls, leading the way outdoors.
If you work outside for a living,
You should know Walls makes clothes to fit any job. We've been keeping working folks comfortable for over 50 years, with clothes for every season. Because we know working outside isn't a picnic, unless it's lunchtime. Walls, leading the way outdoors.
Walls quality outerwear is available at a retailer near you.
If you were a little kid... It's time now for Storm Watch. A little bit later on, we'll talk about some more freezing weather likely for early morning tomorrow across the western Carolinas into northern Georgia. It looks like for much of the Appalachian chain in general. But now we're going to check on the tropics, getting busier once again, Pacific side and also over the western Atlantic basin. And with more on that, let's go to our hurricane expert, John Hope.
Well, thanks a lot, Will. Glad to have everyone with us here today. And tropics are getting a little bit more active. We have Tropical Storm Mitch down here in the Caribbean. We have a low pressure in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. And we have reconnaissance aircraft on the way to each one of those disturbances right now. We have another disturbance out here 600 or so miles east of the islands, which is hanging in there. Right now, we don't think that's going to develop any. We'll start in, though, with the latest particulars on Tropical Storm Mitch. 12.7 north, 77.9 west, that's 370 miles south of Kingston, Jamaica. Kingston, Jamaica being right there. And once again, it isn't moving very much. It's just about stationary. We don't expect it to move a whole lot today, but after that, we expect it to begin to move a little bit toward the north. Now, we want to reiterate, though, this is not getting any stronger this morning, but we believe it still has the potential to do that. And one thing that's happening this morning, I should point out, that we don't see quite such a concentration of heavy showers around the center as we did even 24 hours ago. And we think we know what the reason for that is. The outflow is being retarded a little bit on the western semicircle of this storm because of upper level westerly winds. But we believe that's just a temporary situation, and that's going to change and allow this to develop. It may delay its being a hurricane, but we still think that this does have potential to become a hurricane. Again, we want to show you that we don't have much of a concentration of these deep reds around the center, and that at least leads us to believe that it's not going to increase very much today. This, though, is going to move toward the northwest and maybe back toward the west, and we are afraid that this could be a serious situation in the northwestern Caribbean Sea. It's too early yet to say whether or not it might eventually affect the United States, but anytime you have a tropical storm or hurricane in the western Caribbean headed north, folks along the southeast part of the United States ought to watch out and check it out once in a while. Now, in the Gulf of Mexico, we have doesn't seem to be as well defined a low as we saw it there yesterday. The reconnaissance aircraft will check it out for us. There is a trough of low pressure there. Here we can see the clouds moving from west to east. Up here they're moving from east to west. So there's at least a pretty sharp trough there. And it's been very windy down there overnight. Not quite so windy this morning, but during the night, Veracruz reported winds well in excess of 50 miles an hour for quite a number of hours and very heavy rain. Now, we're not thinking this is going to be a threat to the United States. We think it's most likely going to move south, and very likely the low will move inland in Mexico and sort of dissipate when it does that. Here we can focus in a little bit better on it with this picture, but we still aren't able to see, as we could yesterday, this well-defined circulation. But as I said earlier, the reconnaissance aircraft is on the way down to check it out. This is about disturbed area, about 650 miles east of the islands. It's hanging together so far, but the upper winds are such that we don't think that's going to develop, nor do we expect any of these systems out here in the eastern Atlantic to develop. This is Lester. Lester now is not a hurricane, it's a tropical storm, 70 miles an hour, drifting off toward the southwest, well away from Mexico, and not expected to be any further threat for the mainland. In the meantime, Bab is a devastating typhoon, is moving across the Philippines, forecast to move into the China Seas. The winds are down to 95 miles an hour, but we know there's been tremendous amounts of rain in the Philippines. That's the tropics. Now back to Will.
Thanks a lot, John. We'll check in your current weather map, show you what's going on all around the country. High pressure covers most of the country at the present time. It's going to be another windy one for the state of Florida. Breezy weather developing throughout the Midwest. At high pressure, clear skies and light and variable winds. It's going to be another frosty morning tomorrow morning for places like Atlanta, Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte. Do beware of that factor. Otherwise, later on tonight, we're going to talk about a big storm and also a strong front moving into the Pacific Northwest. More on that and the tropics coming up next.
It was a morning for scraping frost and bundling up from Maine to Georgia. Find out how long the cold will last, plus the national outlook on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This ordinary-looking bed is the key to a restful night's sleep. Even though it may look like an ordinary mattress, it's more comfortable than you could ever imagine. Introducing the Instant Comfort Sleep.
Well, temperatures are going to get really cold again tonight, all the way down into the southeast. We'll have more details on that coming up in just a moment. Right now, our tropical update with hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons.
Well, thank you, Jeanette, and welcome to the Tropical Update. We still have some things out there to talk about, and one of them is our tropical storm in the Caribbean Sea. Here it is down here, and we'll zoom in on that in just a second. We had that tropical disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico. That's been pushed all the way down into the extreme southern Gulf of Mexico. As a matter of fact, it's over land there over Mexico, and we'll zoom in on that as well. And a couple of other tropical features out here we'll discuss. First, let's get to our tropical storm. As of 5 p.m., National Hurricane Center's location 13 north, 78.1 west. That's a fix from reconnaissance aircraft out there that found 50 knots at flight level, which basically correlates to about a 60-mile-per-hour wind there. Right now, nearly stationary, and we can see that by looking at our satellite imagery. Here it is. It's starting to get a little bit dark out there. You can see some relief from some of these clouds, the texture associated with them. You can't miss the center of circulation there. The good news is it's stationary. It hasn't changed in intensity too much, and one of the primary reasons for that we can see on our infrared imagery. Notice these upper-level cirrus clouds moving from the west right into the system. This air is relatively dry and relatively cool, and that's keeping the system relatively unable to develop at this stage of the game. However, that scenario could change in the next 24 to 36 hours, and we could expect this system to increase in intensity to hurricane force. It's not too far away now, but it's going to be a slow mover the next 24 to 30 hours, and probably slow intensification over the next 24 hours anyway. We'll keep you informed on that. Now in the Gulf of Mexico, our mid-latitude cold front, that's this big band of cloudiness here, won out over our tropical low, which is now sitting right down here over the coast of Mexico, and we don't expect that to come back. Even though the winds are still very strong down there, 30 to 40 miles per hour, gusting to 50, it's primarily over land and no tropical development expected. Be careful if you're in the marine environment in the Gulf this weekend. Some very strong breezy winds out of the northeast, especially along this frontal boundary. Be very careful before you venture out into the Gulf of Mexico. Now out in the central Atlantic, we can see Puerto Rico right up in through here, and the Windward and Leeward Islands over here. Still some showers lingering. Most of those are moving north now. Still some showers over Puerto Rico. We have this other massive cloudiness. Most of this cloud is going to move to the north of the islands here over the next 24 to 36 hours. A portion of it will continue to move to the west. This is sort of a surge in the low-level trade wind flow. And then another area of batch of clouds moving to the west will affect the southern islands probably into Monday or so, late Sunday or Monday. Farther off to the east near the African coast, strong upper-level westerlies precluding any development out there. Now, we've been looking at a tropical storm in the Pacific Basin, Tropical Storm Lester, as of 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, about 440 miles southwest of Manzanillo, Mexico. Winds 70 miles per hour. But when we look on the satellite imagery, we see a rather weak-looking circulation. And notice in the surrounding environment, very, very cloudless environment indicating strong subsidence aloft, and that's what's trying to put a hold on this system. It's not going to move too much, generally toward the west, and weaken with time. Just a marine hazard right now. And finally, out in the western Pacific, we've been monitoring what was Super Typhoon Babs. It landfell there in the Philippines, ran over the Philippines, and is now moving into the South China Sea. Still winds of 100 miles per hour with some very, very heavy rain still impacting the coast of Luzon Island on the east side. It'll eventually move up into the South China Sea and come up either into China or up toward Taiwan, and we'll keep you informed on that as well. Now let's go to temperatures across the U.S. with Janetta.
All right, thanks, Steve. We are looking at high pressure in control for the eastern half of the country, and that's what's giving us such great-looking weather for our Friday evening, and actually all day tomorrow. It's going to be really nice. A few scattered showers here, but the big story is obviously the temperatures that are quite mild right now, going to be dropping significantly overnight tonight with that area of high pressure in control. We're going to see clear skies, light winds, and radiational cooling, so we do have frost and freeze advisories in effect. Just how cold is it going to get, and how long will this cold snap last? Stay tuned. We'll tell you all about it in Weather Center next.
It was a morning for scraping frost and bundling up from Maine to Georgia. Find out how long the cold will last, plus the national outlook on Weather Center after your local forecast.
Introducing the first ever daily protein remover for soft contact lenses, Opti-Free Super Cleanse. It keeps your lenses like new longer. Call and try it. Free.
Hello? A free sample? Free is good if the product is great. So what would be great is some cold, hard facts, right?
Fact. People who use Super Cleanse every day for 6 months said their soft contact lenses felt as comfortable as a pair less than a week old.
Contacts I start wearing in winter can feel as comfortable as new. Come summer, it's got to be hard work, right?
Super Cleanse is easy. Just one drop in your lens.
Tropical situation, including a number of tropical systems. We have, first of all, a typhoon to talk about, a tropical storm in the Pacific, as well as one into the Caribbean. Let's have a look at all of our tropical action now with our tropical update as we begin the storm watch. Look at the cool air coming up in mere moments, but first let's talk about things not so close to U.S. shores, yet of interest nonetheless. Tropical storm Mitch, winds around this thing sustained, or winds inside here, sustained at 60 miles per hour. It's making some motion, although be it slow, north-northwest, around 3 miles per hour, 997 millibars. That's its present pressure, 320 miles to the south-southwest of Kingston, Jamaica. You can see it's a reasonable proximity here, and that's why we're watching with such great concern. It has been making kind of a northerly drift. I mean, you can hardly call that really moving at 3 miles per hour, although it is a bit, but just very, very slowly drifting a bit northward. It is expected over the next few days to take somewhat of a north to northwesterly track. There is also the chance as high pressure builds aloft. Now, that's one of the things you have to have when you have high pressure building aloft. That creates a stable environment, kind of a safe harbor, if you will, for some sort of pre-existing spin like this system to get beneath and find a safe place to get a bit stronger. The upper level conditions were not favorable at one point for continued intensification. That now has changed. You can look here and see the brighter white there indicating the kind of the central dense overcast area of this, the stronger part of the storm. Another vantage point on it shows from the look here where you can see the convection from the enhanced infrared satellite. For example, you see those darker reds right there? Those indicates the spots with the highest coldest cloud tops. When it's enhanced, that will indicate that for you. This is a pretty sizable system. Again, because it's moving very slow, it's very important to continue to watch the Weather Channel to see which way it may be drifting next. But again, right now, the official forecast, more of a north to northwesterly direction. Earlier, this was of great concern. This is the Bay of Campeche, and the area was sitting over water for some time and really had to be watched. Now interacting with a front, not exactly a pure tropical batch of moisture, a disturbed area of some tropical weather, kind of a land-based, kind of an extratropical system too. And also, as on the coastline here, incredible winds and some incredible rain can still be seen. So if you have some coastal interest or property along here, you will know to be very careful if you are in this region with the batch of storming that's presently taking place. Looking at some waves here, and also a batch of moisture convection here. Upper level conditions not at all favorable for anything to happen here. It's getting sheared or ripped from the upper levels. You don't expect this to really become anything. Same thing toward the Cape Verde region, the western coast of Africa. Upper level conditions not really favorable for these waves to have much of a long life. Tropical Storm Lester has been around a while from here to here. That's its initialization position, and at one point a hurricane now right there. It was first classified at this spot, so it's been moving for a number of days, and it's continuing to move southwest around 5 miles per hour. Sustained winds are around 60, but it's been kind of falling apart just a bit. Do expect it to continue. It's somewhat of a southerly motion, and eventually just kind of collapsing here with time. The best part of this, as it does continue to move away from land, is that it won't really create any additional swells or any concern along the land. But if you have maritime interest, for example, shipping industry has to worry about this very powerful tropical storm, although weakening and expected to continue to do so. Typhoon Babs actually may be strengthening a bit. There, the Philippines around Luzon, it has interacted and moved onward. And now that it's back mostly over open water, as you can see, it's back in a spot where it can get at that rich fuel source, that warm water. It's continuing to make its drift somewhat to the northwest around 10 miles per hour with sustained winds of around 80. Still, it's forecast to potentially intensify. And as it moves on somewhat to the north and northwest, may interact with the coast of China or Taiwan. We'll keep you on top of this at the Weather Channel. Across the contiguous 48, well, things are pretty warm around LA tonight, walking around 74. 59 toward New York, kind of a cool night, but the real cold air, our high pressure is sprawling out and kicking those clouds away, will really cool off fast around Cleveland and Toledo throughout the Carolinas. That's why we'll have some frost potential. Northern parts of Alabama, Georgia, and around Knoxville, Tennessee, into Virginia. We could have a freeze tonight. Bring in those tender plants that are outside, the sensitive plants, and any animals, too, that you can bring in. You should do that. Again, the cloud blanket's gone. That lets us get rid of all the heat we accumulated in the day. Any kind of warmth is radiating back out into space. Things are a little more active. A little elongated area below pressure known as a trough kicking through may bring us some rain toward Minneapolis. A little wet in the Four Corners, and here comes more rain back to northern parts of California, Portland, and Seattle, too. Even some spots might pick up even portions of the Sierra. Honest to goodness, some snow. Here's a quick look at Saturday's forecast. That sounds pretty important to me. We'll discuss this on the way next.
Frost and freeze advisories are in effect as folks across the eastern U.S. bundle up to beat the chill. Details plus an update on the Texas floods just ahead on...
Well, it's time once again for our look at Storm Watch. We'll talk about some windy weather across much of the Sunshine State for the upcoming day, dry weather for much of the country, and a big storm lashing the Pacific Northwest. But now we're going to feature the tropics and a brand new hurricane as well. We'll show you first of all the entire Atlantic Basin from the Gulf of Mexico, streaking right across the Caribbean and all the way over towards the coast of Africa. And you can see looks like conditions fairly decent over the Gulf of Mexico right now. We're looking at a couple of weak waves again over the Caribbean, but this is what we're going to have to really be concerned about. That what used to be Tropical Storm Mitch, as of 5 o'clock this morning Eastern Daylight Time, it's been upgraded to Hurricane Mitch. And the very latest advisory on Hurricane Mitch, this is it. 14.3 degrees north, 77.7 degrees west, or about 250 miles to the south-southwest of Kingston, Jamaica. Top sustained winds now 90 miles per hour. It's really been cranking up overnight, and again, really intensifying rather rapidly. We think that trend's going to continue. At least a slow to moderate strengthening, northeasterly bound now at 6 miles per hour, and the pressure has dropped a few more millibars down to 988 millibars. This is it right here. It was drifting off towards the north. We think eventually now it may start drifting more towards the north-northwest in time, and after that point, Well, it's just pure speculation of what's going to happen. Some of the computer models take it right up towards the Yucatan Channel, right in through here. Others take it right across Jamaica, which tells you just about at this time, 4 or 5 days down the road, we still have to worry about just about anywhere over the Western Caribbean. And not count out the United States either, especially near the eastern Gulf coastal states and much of Florida. This could still have an impact on you folks sometime down the road, but still way too early to let you know what's going to be happening. But we do have a hurricane right now in an area which is climatologically favored for this time of the year, and something that we will have to watch. Watch the deep convection. Yesterday morning at this time, we saw the center of circulation very well defined, but most of the deep oranges and reds, the very, very strong thunderstorms, were missing, basically gone. That was because it was very close to an upper level storm, which is back to its west. That was creating some wind shear and really knocking the system apart. But now it looks like the low is moving on towards the west, and it looks like Mitch is going to be all by its lonesome self for a while, which means strengthening is going to be a great possibility now. We'll have to keep our eyes on this. This could become a very strong hurricane in time. Of course, Jamaica right there, very close to the action. You've got Cuba off to the north, and you've got Hispaniola and Dominican Republic, of course, off to the northeast. So again, just to get your bearings exactly where Mitch is at the present time, well to the south. Something else we've been watching for the last couple of days has been a big flare-up over the Bay of Campeche. We thought this may become a tropical storm and maybe at least a tropical depression, but the center of circulation, the low pressure located with it, the low-level circulation, is basically right over land. And most of the convection is well off to the north. As long as this trend continues, we do not expect any development, but as long as you've got a big blob of convection over water like this, very warm water, we'll have to keep our eyes on that. But overall, it looks like in time, this is going to continue to drift its way to the west-southwest, probably into Mexico, and may reemerge over the eastern sections of the Pacific Ocean, the west side of Mexico, and maybe take off from there. So we got a couple of interesting features to worry about, including Hurricane Mitch. One tropical wave here. You can see it looks like another flare-up of clouds well south of here. And again, it looks like not too much organization there, or off the coast of Africa, where the Cape Verde season is basically shutting down. Tropical Storm Lester at 2 o'clock this morning, 15 degrees north, 110.8 degrees west, 50-mile-per-hour winds, just drifting west-southwestward at 5 miles per hour. It looks like it's just holding its own right now, and that's going to be the forecast now for the next few days. And the western Pacific Ocean, well, we've had to deal with Zeb. Now we're dealing with Babs after it cruised across the northern Philippines. Now it looks like it's going to take a jaunt somewhere between the China coast and maybe Taiwan during the next couple of days, which could mean some very, very heavy rainfall there, especially for the east coast of China. We'll keep you up to date on that as well.
Tropical weather systems are affected by so many variables.
We constantly monitor the situation.
If someone is safer by watching the Weather Channel, that's what it's all about.
Witness the power of the tarot.
With over 22 years of tarot experience, I have witnessed amazing changes. As an expert in this ancient oracle that dates back thousands of years, I will tell you everything you should know. Call now and you will be dealt your very own special tarot cards. Be prepared for an extremely accurate and revealing reading. Tarot cards should not be underestimated. These powerful cards may make all the difference in your life. They have ancient spiritual powers to change lives, reveal fortunes, even generate wealth. As an expert in this ancient oracle, I know that
a good Saturday morning to you. It's time now for Storm Watch. And our forecast for today does feature a chance for a few strong thunderstorms. And coming up in just a moment, we'll show you if those thunderstorms could be impacting your weekend forecast. In the meantime, though, we want to focus in on the tropics.
It's time for the tropical update, where we have a lot of interesting weather, a far more active weather pattern taking place. We have three very distinct areas that could be rather problematic. First of all, we see a large mass of clouds poised over the southern Gulf, more cloud cover across the Caribbean.